The only other thing I wanted to pick up on your Englishman point, I'll get more onto traditionalism because I've got loads of questions about it. But you didn't say British, which I noticed, which interests me for a couple of reasons.
Yes.
One, because I was raised English. We just thought we were English, and we're a very similar age. So you may be the same.
English.
Huh?
That's because you are English.
Exactly. But then I think it was probably around the Blair years, somewhere in the 90s, suddenly we were British. And I was like, what's this about? Now, in a way, perhaps English was a falling away because you've obviously had an exchange with Peter Hitchens recently. He's someone who would probably think of himself as British. And harking back to the era, perhaps, Britannia rules the waves, whereas we just grew up as English. But then we were told in this kind of kitsch way we were British. And we're like, am I? Because no Scottish person is calling himself British. And no Welsh person, increasingly, not even going to touch Ireland. But, we'd just be English. And so you specifically said English and not British.
The problem with the term British is it doesn't refer to a people. It refers to a state. In fact, it refers to an empire. It was the Union of the Crowns after Scotland had bankrupted themselves trying to set up the Scottish colonial empire, which facilitated the merger of Scotland and England into the state of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and then later on Ireland. And so Britain was consciously an imperial project from the start. The Scots wanted to get access to English colonial holdings in order to gain access to these markets. And so this became a very ephemeral identity. It's a very top layer identity. And it's an identity that is actually pretty incorporative. It is open to almost anyone. I mean, there are lots of British Indians, British Africans, British, Americans, but there are British people all over the world because really it's a kind of constructed civic identity. It is not a sort of a deep and ethnic identity. It's not something that is connected to a particular people in a particular time in a particular place. Almost anyone around the world can call themselves British at this point. And it's not bad that exists. It's actually a very good thing because it also speaks to a particular way of doing things. In many ways, the English way of doing things, which is why I think the term British and English kind of harmonised, and then the more politically correct British was taken instead of English. But you'll notice now that it's just not a noticeable thing to ever speak of England. And England is a place with a people who are, frankly, being taken advantage of, in my opinion. Like the mass migration is not going to Scotland or Wales nearly as proportionally as it is going to England. And the English, at least in Scotland and Wales, they have parties that will call themselves, we're the Scottish Nationalist Party, we're Plaid Cymru. They at least mention their cultural and national names in the party. They can accept that the Welsh are a people and the Scottish are a people, and they get to have a right to have a voice. But the English don't have any such thing. And then people say, well, what about devolved Parliament for England? It's like, well, the English Parliament is Westminster. So we're kind of stuck with England being occupied by the British Empire at the moment. I'm not really an imperialist. I'm a little Englander. I don't think that we need a colonial empire. And I really think that Britain, the empire is over, and we need to start thinking in terms of that. Because you'll notice that the British Empire never lost, right? It didn't lose, but it did fail. And so after the defeat of Nazi Germany, the British Empire was essentially wound down, and you see the shrinkage of the empire back to what is essentially just the occupation of these islands. But the institutions persisted, and you still see the legacy colonial attitude in our politicians today. When someone like Rishi Sunak or Liz Truss or Boris Johnson say, I believe Britain's best days are ahead of us. Oh, really? Oh, really? We controlled a fifth of the globe. So how much of the globe are you expecting to control, and in what timescale, Liz? A quarter of the globe in the next, 20 years? Like, what is your plan to reconquer the empire? There is no reconquering the empire. It's over, right? And that's okay. It was dominant for a century, did a lot of good things in that time, did some bad things, but okay, who didn't? And now we can just essentially lay it to rest and say, right, Britain was a great project, but that time has passed. And so now we need to consider ourselves. And then the question is, well, what is ourselves? What are we? We are the English, they are the Scottish, they are the Welsh, they are the Northern Irish, and we have relations with other peoples. We deserve to be able to have a voice in the dialogue of England. Because at the moment, it's all minoritarian. It's just minority interests, non-stop. It's LGBT, it's black, it's Muslim, it's Asian, it's whatever. And I'm just like, oh my God. You know, can we not talk about the regular families of this country who are currently struggling under a massive tax burden, under an inflation crisis, under mass immigration, under the housing problems, like the buying houses? Like, can we not talk about their problems? Are they not the people for whom this country is run?
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yeah.
the reason this is all bothering me.